Hey guys. So I'm making sort of a little intro video. Although there won't be video to this, it'll just be me talking. A little intro to a podcast that me and my friend are working on. I just want to run over a couple ideas that if you understand ahead of time, it'll make listening to our podcast easier and easier to follow. It'll give you an idea of some context that we're talking about when we talk. Now, our podcast will be on a large variety of topics based around improvement and being happier in life and taking control of things that you don't think you have control of. It's going to be a podcast. If I had to sum it up very shortly, I would say it's basically about awareness and mindfulness and just realizing that not as many things happen to you as you think. You don't have to be a victim in as many situations as you think. But the biggest takeaway that you can get from the podcast that we're going to do is just, it's hard to explain an overall sense of well-being, and it's hard to explain such an all-encompassing effect of having a happier life. But we're going to teach you how to stress way less, how to learn from things that sound like bad situations at first, but you might be able to use to your advantage, and how to not overthink, and just overall how to take a better control of your mind so you don't feel like your mind is something that controls you and your feelings. I think one of the biggest problems people have with their own mind, aside from just being able to sit with it and quiet, is overthinking. I think if you ask most people if they overthink, the majority of them will say yeah. People overthink and stress way more than they need to, and they don't feel like it's in their control. When you're doing it, it doesn't feel like it's in your control. It feels like thoughts that are going through your mind and grabbing your attention, and you can't pull away from them. You can't pull away from the gravity of your thoughts, and then it affects your feelings, and then it affects your day and your well-being. And I think one of the most important realizations you can have to help deal with these things is a realization of who you are at the most basic level. So many people think that because they overthink, they are an overthinker, or they're a sad person, or they're a lonely person, or they're a depressed person. Or some people even might think they are a happy person. But even then, that's not who you are at the most basic level. nor are you your roles in life. Your job, your life circumstance, the place you live, none of that really defines who you are. But if someone were to ask you, "Hi, who are you?" you would probably first give your name, and then maybe give where you work, maybe talk about your family, maybe talk about your religion or other belief system. But what's important to realize is the you that all that comes from. For example, would you really be a completely different person if you had a different job? Or even a different name? You may introduce yourself by a different title, but you're still the same person introducing that title. Are you the person you were when you were a baby? If I look at a baby named Billy, and then I look at Billy 20 years later, we would say that's still Billy, that we would say that's still the same person. But Billy might introduce himself differently now than he would, 10, 15 years ago. He might have a job now. He might be Billy the, garbage man. But the important thing is to sink below all that. Sink below your name and your occupation. And just really try to get a sense for who you are. Who were you before your job? Who were you before the last life-changing event you went through? Who were you before you were named? Before you were born? That may sound silly and irrelevant, but in order to be completely happy, you should really get a grasp for not just who you were 20 years ago, not who you were before you were born, but get a grasp of that part of you that has carried through your life until now. You still want to think about who you are right now, not in the past. But you're looking to get in touch with that you that has been there from the start. You don't want to identify with your occupation. You don't want to think that is who you actually are. Because the truth is, a lot of people have the same job as you. But there's only you. As the person you are, there's only you. There's not a bunch of people that are your life, that are you. I mean, kind of, but we'll get to that later. And the importance of figuring out who you are below all that is that it's where freedom comes in. It's where you can feel free from the things that stress you. It's where you can feel free from your feelings. It's where you can feel free from overthinking and anxiety and impatience and stress and so many things that affect so many people. Like all of that, that's not the amount that we stress about the things we stress about in today's life is not okay. It's not normal. It's not natural. It's completely insane. It's crazy to be feeling bad about something that might happen in the future or something that's happened in the past. Because that's not you. You were you before whatever. And you will be you after whatever. I'm trying to get to a little more of the meatier stuff now. But I just wanted to give a setup to what this is sort of about. When people talk about finding themselves, it sounds cheesy and cliche and new agey and, whatever. But the fact is there is a you to find. The only problem is we look for it outside of ourselves. How crazy is that? How crazy does it sound to look for who you truly are outside of you? This is where meditation can help a lot. I'm not going to go deep into that here. But what meditation does is, of course, depending on your intention and your goal and why you're doing it, it can be used for different things. But what we're talking about here is using it to realize who you are at the deepest level. So maybe try something with me for a second. Hopefully you're somewhere quiet and relaxing. It would probably help if you're laying down. For me it does. For some people they're okay sitting. But sit there for a sec. And try not to grab onto any thoughts going through your head, but if you do, that's okay. If you're laying down, lay your hands by your side. If you're sitting up, put them somewhere comfortable with little stimulation. If you can hold them up off of your chair or your legs or whatever and just hold them in the air, that's good too. Now close your eyes. Let's take a breath with me real quick. In, hold it for a second or two, and then release it not too slow that you have to try too hard, but just slow enough that you know you're controlling it and it's not just escaping as you stop holding your breath. So hold your hands out or place them beside you, your fingers spread apart so they're not touching. The idea is you don't want stimulation going to your hand, so if you can not be touching anything, that's best. But if you can lay your hands by your side, so your fingers aren't touching, Make sure whatever you're laying on is smooth so you don't feel wrinkles under your fingers. And then take that breath. Deep breath in through your diaphragm. You want to feel your belly expand, not your chest rising. Although if your belly expands and then you breathe in deeper and your chest rises afterwards, that's okay too. So we're going to take a deep breath. Hold it for a second or two. And then let it out. Just slow enough that you know you're controlling. We'll do this a couple times. In, hold for a second, and out. Now I want you to try to focus on your hands. Try to bring your attention to your hands. Don't think about them. Just try to feel them. Do you know they're still there? Does it feel like you don't have arms and hands because nothing's touching them? Or can you be aware that they are still there? You can probably feel that they're still there even though you're not feeling anything or touching anything. Can you feel them from the inside? Can you just feel the presence of your hands? Okay. It may not be a strong sensation for you. Not yet, anyway. But you can probably still feel your hands there. You can probably still be aware that your hands are there. Would you still have that awareness of your hands being there if you had a different job? If you had a different name? If you had a different family? If you lived in a different place? If you had $100 million? If you were broke and homeless? If you were a male or female, whatever the opposite of what you are now is, would you still be able to feel your hands without anything touching them and feeding them stimulation? Of course you would. That awareness, and realization that your hands are still there, obviously, that's you. You're still consciously aware that your hands are there. And that consciousness, that awareness that is there completely despite your gender or name or age or job or status in life or income or race or any of these divisions. Take all of that out and you still have that awareness. Not just of your hands, but you have awareness of everything around you. And that base awareness That is you. That is you. Like you. That is you. That is a you that cannot be changed to a different you. That is the you that underlies all those things I mentioned, like your gender, age, job, race, religion, whatever. That awareness that's still there when there's nothing feeding your hands information, but you still know that they're there. That is you. And that is what we're working with. That consciousness, that awareness. And that's important to realize, because when you realize that, when you make that separation from your thoughts and your roles and your titles in life and your place in life, when you separate that awareness and that consciousness from all of that, well, that's the first step to becoming mindful. That's the first step to not letting things that stress you bother you. For some people, that may be the first steps out of depression, out of anxiety and impatience, and just overall life stress. It could be the way out of thinking about the future and the past when you shouldn't. It can be the way out of overthinking. So once you realize that separate awareness, that is what we are working with. That's what we're talking about. That is it. That is the it which you are. That is who you are as an actual being. You are that awareness, that consciousness.